Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Vinny Eastwood Show, broadcasting live from New Zealand, the fabulously fluoridated island-chained nation. My very special guest today is a heavily tattooed man. His name is Chris Spivey. Chris, welcome to the program.
Hello, Vinny.
Whew, lucky we got you. We've been spending the last half hour.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've been spending the last half hour trying to sort out technical issues, and they have been sorted. Well, not really. We got them by phone, so it's all good. Anyway, would you please tell us a little bit about yourself and what it is you do, Chris?
Well, I'm a tattooist by trade, but basically, Vinny, I'm just fed up with the politicians taking the Michael out of us all the time. You know, they're not working for us; they're working for other people, very powerful people, and frankly, they're just screwing us, really.
What woke you up to that fact?
Sorry?
What woke you up to that fact? And I acknowledge that it's a fact, not a theory.
Really, I mean, I've always been sort of not in sync, if you like. You know, nothing's ever seemed quite right. I always thought that, you know, nothing seemed to change. And then when, like a lot of people, 9/11 came about, that sort of didn't fit in.
Well, Chris, we're having some very, very bad problem with your line there, like a big scratchy sound or something like that.
I don't know why. I can hear you fine.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yeah. It sounds fine now.
Yeah. So, as I was saying, 9/11, now I've got the scratchy sound myself now.
See, now the scratchy sound's back again, bro. It just kind of like goes out and you sound fine, and then it just comes back and goes.
Yeah, I can hear it now.
Yeah.
I'm not dancing or anything.
Yeah. Shoot.
Right. We try again. So 9/11 sort of came about, and nothing added up there. Sort of started digging into that, and it just went from there. Just started researching, and this is where I am today.
Yeah, happens to a lot of people, I guess.
Sorry?
Happens to a lot of people, I guess.
It's happening to more and more people, which is, it's stretching. It's happening to more people. Not quick enough, though, Vinny. Not quick enough, mate. We're running out of time, you know. And take this Thatcher's funeral for a start. It's costing, well, some quotes are saying £20 million. So how can you justify spending £20 million when the best they can get is
oh God,
25% of the people? Can you hear me?
Yeah. I can make out what you're saying over the. This is just not working, bro. This is just not working.
You're a long way away from me, mate.
If you go to the Skype, and if you have a cell phone or something like that, we can probably get you on that. So just type us in that phone number, and we should be able to reconnect you. See if it works better. Okay. Well, we seem to have lost Chris. All right. Well, let's see if we can fill in for him here. The element of false flag terrorism that 9/11 presents for people is a life-changing event. You suddenly recognise that, oh my God, I've been sitting there watching these towers explode over and over and over, and repeats itself. Terrorism, Al-Qaeda. And suddenly you get the idea that, oh my God, those towers were blown up by terrorists and Al-Qaeda. And then, later on, you think to yourself, hey, what's the melting point of steel? Oh, no, it's like 1,500 degrees Fahrenheit or something. Oh, okay. And what's the hottest temperature that jet fuel can get up to? I don't know, about 800 degrees Fahrenheit or something like that. Right. So you're saying that it's, in physics, impossible for jet fuel to melt steel. That's right. Yet they claim that it melted the steel and made the entire building explode into particleized dust. They'll be like, yeah, that's right. You frickin' lying bastards. How dare you tell such a monumental fib, mate? Unfrickin' believable. Am I the only one that sees that this is just fully insane? Like, fully insane? I don't know. It's beyond a joke to me that people can look at the evidence. I mean, just looking at the event and having it repeated to you over and over again, that's enough to convince most people that it's true. Okay, but upon further study, looking at some principles and things of that nature, it just doesn't fit with reality. And that's the vast majority of people, really, what won't actually get to that point, or might not. Who knows what the future holds, but most people won't get to that point of simply looking into something. Okay, most of our lives are spent as passive observers. Passive observers. That's all we've really got. That's our claim to fame. That's all we're capable of really doing. And the jump from being passive observers to active observers comes through this information. And once you hear the theories, okay, so there's, what are we talking about? Nanothermite, or controlled demolition, or directed energy weapons, or nuclear bombs, mini nukes, or whatever they call there, either planted in the basement or whatever, the possible Israeli Mossad connections and things like that. Incidentally, there was an Israeli shipping company in the World Trade Center that moved out the week before 9/11, and they broke their, lease. Somebody knew what was up. Lots of people knew what was up that day. Apparently, children in classrooms around New York City were talking about the towers coming down days before it happened. You know, maybe they'd overheard some conversations between mummy and daddy. A whole bunch of people didn't turn up to work. Those who did turn up to work never came home. Well, most of them anyway. Can you understand the mentality of a false flag terrorism attack? Okay, so let's think about this. You're walking down the street, let's say you're a man, and you see this woman that you think is absolutely gorgeous and you want her. Instead of buying her flowers and chocolates and taking her out for a nice meal and stuff like that, you trip her up. But you convince her that it was somebody else that tripped her up later. And then you catch her as she falls. And you go, oh, I'm your savior. And she loves you, and then you get your way with it. That's false flag terrorism, basically. You cause the very problem and then pose as the savior. It's in every movie, pretty much. You know, Star Wars Episode 3, I am the Dark Evil Emperor, and I made this entire Clone War happen, just so that I can control all of the systems under a great galactic empire. Yep, sounds about right. It's not entirely dissimilar from the war in Iraq after 9/11, is it? Is it? Oh, they've got weapons of mass destruction. How do you know that? Well, we looked at the receipt, but as soon as that check clears, we're going in. Are you kidding me? Can we ask as well, how many people have died in Iraq? Over 1 million? Conservatively? How many people died in Iraq during suicide bombings on the day that the people of Boston got bombed? Probably by the government too. About 33. 33 versus 3. Yes, and I understand that the number 33 is very interesting. There happened to be that many. It was just on the same day. You know, here we are in New Zealand watching the news, and out of the, hour or so of extended coverage they have for these 3 white Americans that died, there's just a mention, oh, and by the way, 33 people died in Iraq by suicide bombers today. Good night, everybody. Don't give a frack, do they? not in the media apparel performance. And then, of course, the United Kingdom gets hit by its own false flag as well on 7/7, where they're doing a drill. And this is an interesting connection, isn't it? So, on 9/11, they're doing a drill in NORAD about passenger aircraft being hijacked and flown into the World Trade Center, the Pentagon, and the White House. Okay? They managed to hit quite a few of those targets, don't you think? And there were artificial blips on the screens and stuff like that, so nobody knew what the heck was going on. Jets didn't scramble until like 15 minutes after they should, and they went in the wrong direction. Somebody was messing with those people. Then on 7/7, oh, you've got how many tube bombs? Like what, 2, 3 tube stations and a bus.
Hello, Vinny.
Oh, hey, here we go. We got Chris back.
How we going, mate? All right.
We're doing all right.
Yeah. So what were we talking about, Vinny?
Well, I was just trying to explain the outlays of false flags and how they kind of happen to everybody. Like on 7/7, they've got 4 bombs that went off. One of them on a bus that had a banner that said "Absolute Terror."
that bus had been diverted as well. It should have been in Russell Square. Did you know that?
Yeah.
It was the only one sent up there, and it wasn't meant to be up there.
Yeah.
It was very suspect. And also, you know, that the holes blown in the carriages, the metal was facing upwards rather than downwards. So the bombs came from beneath the trains, you know. So that doesn't make sense. And then there's the photoshopped pictures of the terrorists. I don't know if you've seen it. It's quite a famous picture of the terrorists entering the tube station. And there's a railing there, and the railing goes right through one of them's body. No, that's very suspect straight away. Plus, the explosives they had, they wouldn't have been able to get hold of. It's military grade. So all that talk about homemade bombs and that was rubbish as well.
Yeah. On top of that, a couple of the suicide bombers were seen leaving stations and got shot down by police in the Isle of Dogs. And now, isn't that funny, getting shot down by dogs in the Isle of Dogs?
11, Vinny, that wasn't it? You know, most of them are still alive.
Yeah. Well, apparently they claim that they're victims of identity theft.
Well, whatever they are, they're still alive, mate. And as for passports flying out of aeroplanes that hit buildings and landed intact, that doesn't make, well, that's beyond silly, really, isn't it?
Yeah. Now, we were discussing this yesterday in relation to the Boston bombings, because just like on 9/11, just like on 7/7, the Boston bombings had a bomb drill going on. Okay.
Yeah, the war bombing as well.
Yeah, my girlfriend was looking at a Facebook post and it says, "If the government is doing a drill, get the frack out of town."
That's right. Yeah, that's good advice to take.
Yeah. Don't worry, it's just a drill, and then everybody goes, "Ah!" Starts running.
Well, it didn't make sense anyway to me, Vinny. I mean, like, we had Thatcher's funeral. But instead they choose to plant bombs in Boston. You know, a couple of bombs anywhere in London yesterday would have done the trick. You know,
yeah,
and get them a lot more attention. I mean, imagine if they'd have caused chaos. If they'd, I don't know, say set a couple of bombs off in the East End, or even away from the funeral. Imagine how much disruption that would have caused.
Well,
you know, they didn't even have to set them off at the actual location, you know?
Well, I was watching footage.
It just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense at all.
Yeah, I was watching footage from Boston last night. They've locked practically the whole fracking city down. They've closed all the schools. They've stopped all public transport. They've got troops in all this frickin' massive body armor and tanks on the streets and all of this kind of stuff for a manhunt for like 1 or 2 guys, they claim.
Haven't they shot them now or something? Didn't I see earlier?
Really? Is that what that happened earlier?
I believe they've been. I believe they've been shot dead. Don't quote me. I say I haven't been on the internet that much today. I've been busy with other things, but as far as I know, yeah, they've shot them dead, which didn't make sense either.
Yeah, I mean, if you've got a bomber and something like that, hey, you want to take them alive so that you can send them to jail.
Of course you do, but it's the same as this Bin Laden thing, isn't it? All the people who supposedly shot him, again, you know, they're all dead. That biggest attack or most successful attack the Taliban's ever had, shooting down the helicopter, and it just happened that the Navy SEALs who supposedly killed Bin Laden were there.
We're all on there, overloaded as well. You're only supposed to have 6 SEALs per chopper, I think, or something like that. And they had the whole SEAL team on that one chopper, and it got taken down.
You know, and that was the most successful Taliban hit to date. It just doesn't make sense, mate. Well, I mean, all that
Chris,
burying at sea. Why did they bury him at sea? He wasn't in the Navy.
Yeah, well, Chris, hold on a second. We're coming back to break. We'll be right back in just a few minutes, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Vinny Eastwood Show, broadcasting live from the fabulously fluoridated capital of Auckland, New Zealand, the island-chained nation in the sunny, slave, British-controlled South Pacific. My very special guest is Chris Spivey, tattoo artist and conspiracy expert-ish. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Vinny.
All right. Now, we've got him via webcam and phone, so we've managed to get some sort of a technical issue going on here. That's good. That's good. All right. Now,
by the end of the show, we'll be there.
Yeah. Where were we? We were talking about...
We was talking about Bin Laden, wasn't we?
Oh yeah.
And the anomalies around his death, you know, sort of, why would they bury him at sea? What is the point of that? He wasn't a Navy man. Funerals for the sea are for Navy men, aren't they?
I loved it. They said that. What did they
convenient.
Say? Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, and that didn't make sense. They said it was so that they couldn't. No one could sort of destroy his grave and whatnot. Well, what a load of old twaddle that is, you know. No one. I mean, we had Myra Hindley. You know, you've heard of Myra Hindley in New Zealand, I take it.
No.
No, she was a mass murder of children in the 1960s, and she died a few years back. But they didn't bury her at sea, you know, and she was absolutely reviled. So that just makes no sense whatsoever. That. Jimmy Savile hasn't been buried at sea, has he? Yeah, all right, they've removed his headstone, but they didn't bury him at sea. So that just makes no sense. That's just a little bit too convenient, isn't it? You know, the whole thing was a lot of old bollocks anyway, Vinny, wasn't it? He had the old man looking at videos of himself, or what the newspaper said. You know, this is Bin Laden, only. The footage was taken from behind, not front. Well, why do that? Who takes a home movie from behind? But they portrayed him as a sad sort of figure watching these home movies of his glory days, so to speak. And then in the next breath, they're saying, you know, he's the most dangerous man in the world. Like, you can't have it both ways. You know, you can't one minute be like Satan and the next minute be, you know, a sad old man. It's bollocks, mate.
It was quite hilarious to me. I asked my friend Genocide is a Muslim rapper here in New Zealand, and said, bro, they said it was a Muslim burial to dump them into the ocean. He's like, nah, bro, Muslim burial, you have to bury them really, really quickly, as quickly as possible.
Yeah, within 24 hours.
Yeah, within 24 hours, 6 feet under the ground so animals can't get them. In what world does that translate as turn them into shark bait?
Exactly. I said it was all just too convenient because his body can't be exhumed, can it? And there's no way of proving whether it was him or wasn't him. But we all know he died shortly after 9/11 anyway. He was in the American Army Hospital in Egypt, I think, if I remember rightly, on dialysis. He was very sick anyway, wasn't he? So... it was just sort of convenient, a distraction, if you like. to sort of finish him off there, and to have all them American politicians in the one room with Hillary Clinton. What an evil woman that is. Hillary Clinton sort of clasping her mouth in mock horror. It's almost ghoulish, isn't it? Let's watch this man. He's shot to death. Who isn't being shot, but what a load of old twaddle. And I say, then to kill off all the Navy SEALs as well. Whether they actually did get killed off, whether they existed at all, Vinny, is questionable, isn't it? I say, because it just wasn't Bin Laden. It wasn't,
If the government tells me the sky is blue, I'm going to have to check just before I believe it,
Well, yeah, we are, Vinny, but millions and millions of other people aren't. They're all buying into this crap. Now, I've written a few things on Thatcher, getting back to Thatcher, and people, they're arguing between whether she, did any good or whether she did any bad. Like, some say that her breaking of the unions was a good thing. Others, obviously, no, it wasn't a good thing. But that's beside the point. The point is, she spent 11 consecutive Christmases with a known paedophile, a necrophile as well, Jimmy Savile. 11 consecutive. Now, you look at Thatcher, sort of with her prim and proper hair and a posh speaking voice, and you look at Jimmy Savile with his flamboyant clothes and his dyed hair, and you think, well, what the hell have they got in common? What are they going to talk about? Yeah, 11 consecutive Christmases. And she would bend over backwards to help him out, appearing on his shows, appearing on his radio shows. He even bragged in the newspaper that he was responsible for getting her into power. Now, I know it might have been tongue-in-cheek, but that's sort of close. And that goes to the royal family as well. It's just been announced today, world exclusive in the Sun newspaper, Britain's biggest selling newspaper, that Rolf Harris was arrested. Well, I've been printing that for the last 5 months, that Rolf Harris, but suddenly it's a Sun exclusive. But, once again, straight away, the picture that accompanies it is of Prince Charles. Why is Prince Charles such good friends with all these, Jimmy Savile, Rolf Harris? You can connect everyone who's been arrested back to the royal, and they've all been rewarded by the Queen as well, of course. That's it almost makes anyone who gets an MBE suspect. But they won't knock on the palace door. They won't even question them. When it's over. And I don't know if you've seen the photos, Vinny, of Savile and Prince Charles.
No.
Well, mate, there's obviously a very, very close relationship there, and of course Savile was friends with the old man, the duck as I call him, full of duck, Prince Philip, and they fell out. We hear they fell out spectacularly. Well, what the hell can a DJ and he's the King of England in all but name. What can they fall out over? Why didn't they, did it just sort of freeze him out of the royal circles? Why fall out of this big argument? It doesn't make sense. Once again, Savile was introduced to Prince Philip through Mountbatten. I did an article on Mountbatten just the other day. A known paedophile. That man was a pervert of the first order. When you got the mainstream media commenting on the marriage and admitting that they were having a threesome with the Indian Prime Minister just after the war, I forget, Nehru or whatever his name was, and the mainstream media are admitting that they used to have threesomes. This Mountbatten, Mrs. Mountbatten, and the Indian Prime Minister, and that's how perverted they was. But of course,
can I say something?
Sorry?
Can I say something? Allegedly, that is basically how the upper echelons work. on straight up sexual debauchery, more to the point, recorded or at some point, so that if they ever start speaking out or whatever, out come the pictures of you with a little kid.
Exactly, and this is how Skull and Bones works as well. You know, what George Bush was in their frat house. Then apparently, you know, there's sort of masturbation going on there, and sex with fellas and whatnot. So that way, you know, that stops them from speaking out. Vinny, Mountbatten, without a doubt, was abusing the Duck, Prince Philip. And then, knowing that, he then left the young Prince Charles in his care. Now, what kind of parent leaves their little boy in the care of a known paedophile, mate?
Maybe one that wants to see them sexually abused so that they can be controlled for the rest of their life.
And this is just the norm. This is the norm within the royal family, and people just can't get their heads around this. You know, they see these posh-talking, well-to-do people, and they can't think no bad of them. You know, and even, I see people waving their little flags at them. Oh, the Queen is the richest woman in the world. We've got children starving in this country, mate. Starving in England today. There is children starving. And what was she doing about it? You know, she's meant to be this gracious, noble queen. She could end world poverty, let alone British poverty, and still be a multi-trillionaire. But what does she do? Nothing, absolutely nothing. In fact, I keep posing the question in my articles: what has the Queen done in the 60 years that she's been on the throne for England? You know, or for her subjects? And there is, well, she brings a lot of money in tourism. Of course she doesn't. The heritage would still be there. You know, people don't say, hey, honey, we're going on holiday, let's go and see the Queen. You know, they're not going to see the Queen. They come to see the palaces, and no, the heritage is still going to be there, even when the Queen is long gone. To say that the Queen brings in so many millions, it's just bollocks. And on top of that, even then, the money that he's brought in tourism is nowhere near the cost of the upkeep of the royal family. Now, I say, Vinny, if people want the royal family, let them pay for her. And if they don't, then they just they don't serve no purpose on as far as the public are concerned. They just so, but they're not ceremonial, Vinny. They're not. We cannot go to war without the Queen say so. We cannot end a war without a Queen say so. She has the power to sack the government, you know, as she did with the Australian Prime Minister a few years back. I can't remember which one it was.
Kevin Rudd?
I'm not sure.
I thought they did it to. I thought they did it to the Canadian government. They actually did suspend the Canadian Parliament for a number of months. Actually, I think it was like she suspended them for like 3 months.
I'm sure it was the Australian Prime Minister, mate. I may be wrong. I haven't got my notes in front of me, but I'm sure it was the Australian. Going back a few years now. But although they didn't come out and say the Queen has sacked the Australian Prime Minister, as you know, because she's the Queen of Australia as well. But it was her doing. It was all, you know, sort of traced back to her. And this is, but people think, oh, you know, she's just ceremonial. But that is a load of old bollocks, mate. She's far from ceremonial. They have an awful say, and they let that Prince Charles is continually lobbying for more money. Well, you know.
Well, there's two things I'd like to add in. There's two things I'd like to add in here. One was an article out of the Telegraph, I think, where the Queen was pleading poverty and that she wanted a fund that was meant to go to the poor to go to her so that she could heat the palaces that she didn't live in.
That's right, yeah. She put a central heating bill. Yeah. You know, and people believe it. But this is the thing, Vinny. This is the serious thing. People believe it, and that is dangerous, mate. That is where because whatever the mainstream media, no one questions it. No one questions it. No one. How many governments have come and gone in the past, and no one's ever no better off? Oh well, that's it. Do you know? I say I'm not going to vote for Conservatives. I'm going to vote for Labour. You're voting for the same people, mate. You know, it's the whole system. You've got to think outside the box now. Because the system isn't working. It's designed not to work. It never will work, and people are just contributing to their deaths, mate.
Well, I disagree. I think the system is working, and it's working really well. It's just it's not meant to be working for us.
Exactly. So sooner or later, the economy is going to collapse. It has to collapse. I mean, we've got all these austerity measures over here, and they've been in place since at least 2 years. Getting tougher and tougher. Yet the national debt, a fraudulent debt, is continually rising. You know, it's not going down. And we're talking about the interest, Vinny. We're not talking about paying the debt off. We're talking about paying the interest. And this is what's happened. Of course, this is what's happened in Greece and whatnot. They can't afford they can't afford the debt. They can't afford the interest on the debt. The bankers aren't worried about the actual debt. It's as long as they get their interest payments on it. Once you default on that, they call it in, and then that's when your economy collapses. And this was what happened in Greece, and it's going to happen in Portugal. This is what happened in Ireland. They could no longer afford the interest on the debt. And I mean, you think about it, when Cameron came in and said, yeah, we've got to get this debt down, introduced all these measures to so the debt would stop rising and they could pay it off. And if it was a case of just reducing the debt, the austerity measures could be taken over a longer period of time. Why, all of a sudden, but it's not. I say it's the interest, and that is the crucial thing. That's what people got to understand. They've also got to understand it's a fraudulent debt. Iceland defaulted on it. Iceland's doing very nicely now. You never read about Iceland in the mainstream media. Why not?
Yeah. And the perfect example of what happens when you just go, hey, hold on a second, Mr. Bankster scumbag, you're a fraudster, and all the debt that you think you've got us in, you just made that stuff up. All right. Now I think of it as like a medical thing, okay? If the debt doesn't go down in 4 years, you've got to contact your doctor. We'll be right back after the break at thevinnieeastwoodshow.com.
Hi.
Yeah, happens to a lot of people, I guess.
Sorry?
Happens to a lot of people, I guess.
It's happening to more and more people, which is, it's catching.
See,
it's happening to more people. Not quick enough, though, Vinny. Not quick enough, mate. We're running out of time, And take this Thatcher's funeral for a start. It's costing, well, some quotes are saying £20 million. So how can you justify spending £20 million when the best they can get is
oh God.
25% of the people. Can you hear me?
Yeah. I can make out what you're saying over the. This is just not working, bro. This is just not working.
You're a long way away from me, mate.
If you go to the Skype and if you have a cell phone or something like that, we can probably get you on that. So just type us in that phone number and we should be able to reconnect you. See if it works better. Okay. Well, we seem to have lost Chris. All right. Well, let's see if we can fill in for him here. The element... Bastards! How dare you tell such a monumental fib, mate? Unfrickin' believable. Am I the only one that sees that this is just fully insane? Like, fully insane? I don't know. It's beyond a joke to me that people can look at the evidence. I mean, just looking at the event and having it repeated to you over and over again, that's enough to convince most people that it's true. Okay, but upon further study, looking at some principles and things of that nature, it just doesn't fit with reality. And that's the vast majority of people, really, what won't actually get to that point, or might not. Who knows what the future holds, but most people won't get to that point of simply looking into something. Okay, most of our lives are spent as passive observers. Passive observers. That's all we've really got. That's our claim to fame. That's all we're capable of really doing. And the... Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Vinny Eastwood Show, broadcasting live from New Zealand, the fabulously fluoridated island-chained nation. My very special guest today is a heavily tattooed man. His name is Chris Spivey. Chris, welcome to the program.
Hello, Vinny.
Whew, lucky we got you. We've been spending the last half hour.
Yeah,
we've been spending the last half hour trying to sort out technical issues, and they have been sorted. Well, not really. We got them by phone, so it's all good. Anyway, would you please tell us a little bit about yourself and what it is you do, Chris?
Well, I'm a tattooist by trade, but basically, Vinny, I'm just fed up with the politicians taking the Michael out of us all the time. You know, they're not working for us; they're working for other people, very powerful people, and frankly, they're just screwing us, really.
What woke you up to that fact?
Sorry?
What woke you up to that fact? And I acknowledge that it's a fact, not a theory.
Really, I mean, I've always been sort of not in sync.
Of false flag terrorism that 9/11 presents for people is a life-changing event. You suddenly recognise that, oh my God, I've been sitting there watching these towers explode over and over and over, and repeats itself. Terrorism, Al-Qaeda. And suddenly you get the idea that, oh my God, those towers were blown up by terrorists and Al-Qaeda. And then, later on, you think to yourself, hey, what's the melting point of steel? Oh, I don't know, it's like 1,500 degrees Fahrenheit or something. Oh, okay. And what's the hottest temperature that jet fuel can get up to? I don't know, about 800 degrees Fahrenheit or something like that. Right. So you're saying that it's, in physics, impossible for jet fuel to melt steel. That's right. Yet they claim that it melted the steel and made the entire building explode into particleized dust. They'll be like, yeah, that's right. You frickin' lying butt.
If you like, you know, nothing's ever seemed quite right. I always thought that, you know, nothing seemed to change. And then when, like a lot of people, 9/11 came about, that sort of didn't fit in.
Well, Chris, we're having some very, very bad problem with your line there, like a big scratchy sound or something like that.
I don't know why. I can hear you fine.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yeah. It sounds fine now.
Yeah. So, as I was saying, 9/11, now I've got to scratch it down myself now.
See, now the scratchy sound's back again, bro. It just kind of like goes out and you sound fine, and then it just comes back and goes...
Yeah, I can hear it now,
Yeah.
I'm not dancing or anything.
Yeah. Shoot!
Right, we try again. So, 9/11 sort of came about, and nothing added up there. Sort of started digging into that, and it just went from there. Just started researching, and this is where I am today.